Hello there, it's Mr. Burns once again. Another flip video coming at you from A110. We are trudging along here. Unit 4, which is our longest unit of the year. 3 branches of government and federalism and separation of powers and checks and balances. Basically the structure of our current government. And the first set we're going to talk about is this idea, these concepts, federalism and separation of powers, checks and balances, as well as the legislative branch. When we get into set 2, we'll focus on the executive branch, and set 3, the judicial branch. Remember Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 of the Constitution. Let's eat jelly beans, legislative, executive, judicial, just like it is on our 9-box chart that we're going to learn about as well. Okay, so we've got a lot going on here in Unit 4 right before winter break. Here we go. Don't forget, handout number 2 is what you have in front of you. It's your vocab. Your job is to complete the 2 right columns, the your definition and the colored visual picture symbol column, by the quiz and due date of the vocab. Okay? So that'll be in January. Alright, here we go. We have bicameral as our first vocab. Bicameral. The Congress, you can see from this picture here, Congress is 2 parts. You have the House of Representatives and you got the Senate. Okay, Congress is 2 parts. The bicameral legislature. Alright, next word. We got a bill. We're going to maybe do a little simulation, a bill of law simulation here. A bill is a rough draft of a law. It's not a law until it's approved. Until it's approved, it's a bill. Alright. Oh yeah, by the way, most bills can be introduced in the Senate or House of Representatives, except a tax bill, which must be started in the House of Representatives. Pretty interesting. Alright, so we have commerce. Commerce is something that the legislative branch does at the national level, is they regulate commerce. And that's anything that has to do with interstate trade or business. Alright, next. 4th word on our first set. Here we got foreign policy. One thing that the legislative branch does as well is they have a kind of authority over how we deal with our other countries, establishing a foreign policy procedure. Alright, turn to the next page when you're ready. And here we go with impeach. A lot of people think impeach means to kick someone out of office, but it doesn't. It just means to officially charge with a crime. So Andrew Johnson was impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached. Richard Nixon would have been impeached, but he quit. Neither of those 2 that were impeached, Johnson or Clinton, were removed. Alright, you got interstate. You got interstate commerce, dealing how the states deal with one another. It's one of the roles of the legislative branch. Interstate, between states. Alright, next is legislature. That's just a lawmaking body. We have a bicameral legislature. It's called Congress. It's talking about House of Representatives, Senate. House of Representatives based on population. Senate, 2 per state. The Senate's considered the upper house, the one with a slightly more authority than the House. Okay? House of Representatives members serve 2-year terms. Senators serve 6-year terms. To override is to cancel the action of. So, one thing that the president could do is veto a law, cancel a law, right? Congress can then override that veto, but they need 2/3 vote in both houses. So it's really hard to get, especially because laws are so political. And you usually don't get 2/3 of one party in office in either of the houses. Alright, we got regulate. Regulate's kind of to control, right? To set the rules for, to manage, to make sure that things don't get out of hand, to make sure that there's a plan in place in case something new comes out. That's their job in Congress, is to regulate certain things in our government. Okay? So they regulate. Whether that be finances or whether that be business, commerce. Okay. Alright. The next 3, you only have to fill in the section that's red because I already filled in the other parts. But checks and balances. It's where one branch has an action. The other 2 branches can either confirm or approve those actions or block or cancel those actions. It's one of the Founding Fathers' ideas to make sure that the government doesn't get too powerful. It's limited. to make sure each branch is limited within that government, and to make sure that they work together and all branches are involved in all activities. We're going to learn through each branch what each of the three branches can do and what they can do in response. Okay? All right, we have federalism. Federalism is another way to make sure our government wasn't too powerful, right? National level has some powers. Some powers are reserved to the states by the 10th Amendment, and then the states can then divvy up some powers to local governments. And this divides the power kind of on a 9-box chart. It's going to be the ones going up and down. Levels: national, state, local, and national, supreme. Okay. Then we have our separation of powers, which is our 9-box chart, which is our branches going across, right? We got our legislative branch, which makes the laws, creates the laws. We got our executive branch, which takes laws, turns them into action, enforces the laws. And then we got our judicial branch, which interprets the laws and analyzes whether these laws are even legal according to our Constitution. All right. So all three of those safeguards are in place to make sure that our government does not become too powerful. All right. What we got next? We got express powers. So on the back, we have 4 different types of powers that our government has. Okay, and you do need to know the difference between these, and maybe to name some examples. We'll take some more notes on this later in the unit. Express powers are powers of the national government listed directly in the Constitution. Okay, some of these powers include declaring war, creating an army, collecting and levying taxes, and things of that nature. Okay, these are things that are expressed in our Constitution. All right. Then you got implied powers. And this idea of this elastic clause, this necessary and proper clause. Congress can stretch its power. And the reason they put this here is to make sure that we can stay up to date on current times. Because as things progress in the future, there's new inventions, there's new activity going on in the world that might allow Congress to do something slightly outside of what they were originally listed to do. Okay, so the airplane was invented, and now we have an Air Force. Okay, all of a sudden people are earning hourly wages, so we establish a minimum wage. Okay, Social Security all of a sudden comes out as a need during the Great Depression. So all these things that maybe like the Founding Fathers didn't think of or know about originally, didn't even exist. Now Congress can do these things. All right, we've got reserve powers, the 10th Amendment. Anything that the national government is not in charge of is set aside. It's reserved for the states and reserved for the people. So one of the examples I like to use is licenses. Marriage and divorce laws is another example that the states have power over. Okay, and then of course establishing local governments as well. These are some big reserved powers that the national government says, states, you have power and authority over these things. All right. And then the last one is concurrent powers, things that are shared. So anything at the national and state level. We got establishing laws. We got maintaining roads. We got prison system. There's national, state, and local prisons, right? These are all examples of things that the national government and the state governments both can do. That's concurrent. And one way I remember this is if you take Spanish, the prefix here is con, C-O-N, which means with in Spanish. So they're shared with, they're shared together. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you had a good time. Next is for you to work on that homework and get that done by the due date. And don't forget, on the due date, anytime we have a quiz due date, or a vocab due date, we have a quiz that day. So we'll have a quiz as well, an e-card quiz. Alright, signing off.